On September 11th, never forget, 1993, Nickelodeon released a game show called Legends of the Hidden Temple. This would come at a time when Nickelodeon was kind of throwing a lot of game shows at the wall to see, what worked. And surprisingly, a lot of them worked. We had game shows like Guts, Nick Arcade, and Wild and Crazy Kids finding a lot of success while airing the year before. Oh, man. I don't really know if I would call Wild and Crazy Kids a game show. I mean, there were teams and they would compete against one another, but they didn't really... It was like a summer camp type thing and not like you got prizes type deal. Sort of like Color Wars, if you had Color Wars at your school, or like the red, white, and blue day. That was at my elementary school. We had red, white, and blue day. Because, gotta be propaganda for United States, loving the United States, love being American. Of course, I cannot forget about Double Dare, though that went through a lot of iterations, starting in like the 80s before coming back in 94 and coming back in like 2019, 2020. So you could really say Double Dare went through a lot of lives, like Nick Arcade, the contestants on Nick Arcade, like because of video games. Metal Slug. Legends of the Hidden Temple happened to be my favorite of these game shows Nickelodeon produced in the early 90s. Ran for 3 seasons and totaled 120 episodes. How the show worked being 6 teams would attempt to be the last team standing so they could take a run at Olmec Temple with the hopes of winning incredible, or at least incredible for the early 90s, prizes. But the kind of person that I am, I have trouble falling asleep because I think a lot. And one of the thoughts I had was, what team was statistically the best team? So join me as I rattle off a number of statistics to find out which team was the best Legends of the Hidden Temple team. I got a little primer to get out of the way. If you're wondering if this is some kind of ploy that to get into the algorithm because of the CW, which I hate calling the CW because it makes me feel old, announced they were doing a reboot for Legends of the Hidden Temple, and this is me attempting to get out in front of the big searches for Legends of the Hidden Temple. That's not the case. That's completely wrong. I had to watch 120 episodes of a TV show and accurately get some information so I can make this video as accurate as I could. So really, this process took months, and I started this whole process before the CW announced they were doing a reboot. Quibbly, the streaming service that lasted barely longer than my longest relationship, announced they were going to do a Legends of the Hidden Temple show. I could have done it then. Shit, guy. I could have done this video 5 years ago in 2017 or whatever the fuck, when Nickelodeon did the live action Legends of the Hidden Temple movie that was just kind of loosely based off the game show. Could have just ripped the show from YouTube or whatever, gotten my information that way and called it a day. No, I planned this in advance before reboots were announced. When my Space Jam video came out, that was even before we had a name for Space Jam 2 or even a trailer. So I'm really not trying to play any kind of algorithm game. I'm just trying to make videos that I want to make, and I guess it really comes down to I want to make math videos, I guess. A lot of my previous videos were based on math. Hey Arnold was based on math, trying to figure out the weight of his head. Bear in the Big Blue House was math related. I guess this is math related too. I really hope I don't slowly devolve into some weird math teacher with weird word problems. With that out of the way, let me describe to you how Legends of the Hidden Temple worked if you didn't have a childhood in the 90s. Legends of the Hidden Temple consisted of 6 teams: the Red Jaguars, the Blue Barracudas, the Green Monkeys, the Orange Iguanas, the Purple Parrots, and the Silver Snakes. And I can't tell you how deeply annoyed I am that only 3 of these teams, half the teams, are alliterative while the other half are not. It's incredibly annoying. These teams would compete in physical and knowledge-based challenges to be the last team standing for a chance to take a run at Olmecs, the show's mascot's temple. Fine, I'll do it. I'll talk about the Olmecs. Olmec is based off of the Olmecs, one of the first civilizations in Mexico. They were located in what is current day Gulf of Mexico. It's a very messy sentence because there's no way to say present day Gulf of Mexico. Present day Gulf of Mexico, that's better than what I said originally. They last from 1600 BCE, before the Common Era, to 350 BCE, still before the Common Era. They were inevitably wiped out because of global warming. Funny joke, but that's technically kind of a little bit true. As the years went on, the area in which the Olmecs were situated, the environment became unlivable for them. So, global warming was kind of it, even though the world wasn't warming. I don't know why this was the case. That it became unlivable. Something, maybe water rising, or not enough water. Or it got too hot, or it got too cold, or maybe they didn't have a way to stay alive. Who knows? I wish I would be wiped off. One of the most interesting things about the Olmecs, which is coincidentally the most relevant to this video, is that they left behind statues of 7 giant heads. We don't really, when I say we, I mean the real historians that do the work, and I kind of just look at a article online like a dumb idiot. They don't know what these heads are supposed to be or what they mean. Maybe it was like village leaders. They are specifically sculpted in a different way with stylings of headpieces. So maybe it's leaders. I'm not gonna pretend to know what they are. So well, that's why Olmec's just a big old honking head. And truth be told, there isn't a lot of other information about the Olmecs. We know that there was a trade route. Once again, I use we as the loosest term of we ever. They had a trade route that extended widely across the rest of South America. They had their own, unique art style that was separate from the statues they created of big heads. And whatever their religious beliefs were, the historians haven't figured that out, though, religion's kind of a cult a little bit. So, historians don't have a whole lot to go off of. Let's get back to fun. Kurt Fogg would descend upon the soundstage like a modern-day Jesus Christ, wherein which he would be the guide for the 6 teams to navigate through the show. The show was separated into 4 segments. The first challenge was a water-based challenge. You would have to cross a moat in whatever fashion was designed for that specific episode. They used like a rope system or like a tube system or like a boogie board system, whatever they had done for, that specific episode, or 4 episodes. They filmed these in chunks. So if you watch 4 episodes in a row, the water challenge is gonna be done the same way. The first 4 teams to get both of their members across the moat and ring their buzzer would move on to the next round. The 2 eliminated teams would go home with, I have to assume, a not so great prize.
A $50 savings bond from Chef Boyardee.
Beefy.
Okay, so a $50 savings bond to Chef Boyardee seems pretty legit. That seems, if they hold on to it, it must have gone up in value. That's some real good value for a kids show prize. $50 is $50, but who knows what that's at now? The second stage would be the Steps of Knowledge. Olmec would tell us a story about some artifact that would be the focal point of the episode. Some of the facts would be real, and some of the facts would be lamaus. And at some point, he would introduce the artifact that would be needed to be retrieved from the temple of, whatever the last team happened to be around. Once finished with his tale, he would then quiz the 4 teams on the story they had just heard. The questions are multiple choice. One of the answers is clearly wrong. So really you have a 50-50 shot of getting an answer right. It wasn't a hard quiz, though sometimes people would buzz in and not know the answer before, they were given the multiple choice answers. It was very embarrassing to watch. It's not a hard quiz. I mean, I guess because I'm so old, I can retain the information easier, so the quiz seemed easy, but I mean, it wasn't that hard. The first 2 teams to answer 3 questions correctly would move on to the next round. The 2 eliminated teams would surely get a better prize than, the last guys.
A savings bond from Ring Pop. A great tasting, long-lasting candy that looks as great as it tastes.
Another $50 savings bond. Not to say that's, better or worse than the last savings bond, but, that's still a good prize. That's a decent prize. I mean, $50 is a good value for kids in the 90s. And hey, surprise, surprise, did the math. Turns out, if they had just held on to the savings bond till 2021, it would have tripled in value to $150, not $151. But, would have been $150. Though nowadays, $150 can't do you anything. Because, capitalism has kind of ruined everything. I mean, I guess that's better than a VCR or something. The third round would be the Temple games. This would be 3 games in which, best 2 out of 3 type deal. The first 2 games would be a one-on-one type of situation, and they would net the winner a half pendant of life. More on those pendants of lives later. The third and final game would be a 2-on-2 type situation to really show that teamwork is important, and you need it to get through this depressing thing we call life. Legends of the Hidden Temple had created a situation in which they would have ties, even though it was 2 out of 3 games. You could also have each team having a whole pendant of life at the end of the 3 games, so they would have to do a tiebreaker, just worth no pendants of life, just if you win, you go on. The loser would surely have to get something better than $50.
A gift package from Nerds Brand Candy. The tiny, tangy, crunchy candy with intense fruit flavors.
I guess a gift basket of candy is better than $50 if you're into the instant satisfaction of candy. They're is it $50 of candy that you're getting? Because if not, then if you got $50, you could just get $50 of candy. So the Nerds candy doesn't seem so great now, does it? And finally, the last remaining team would take a run at the temple to retrieve the lost or forgotten artifact. The temple consisted of 12 rooms, each with a different theme, and feat needed to be done to move on to the next room. In the first season, the artifact was typically placed at the far end of the temple, which means that you are more than likely to run into a dead end of the temple and would have to backtrack through the other rooms to find the correct path to the artifact. In seasons 2 and 3 of the show, the artifact would be placed in a random room, making a more defined path, I think, because my logic being that the 3 rooms that would be connected to the artifact that would also be on the side you came in from wouldn't really be open because that would be too easy, so you'd have to go, in, down, and around. Actually, after writing this whole script and then reviewing it to make sure it read well, I did some quick math on this subject. So in season 1, out of 40 episodes, there were 11 total grand prize winners. Not a lot, but, still a significant amount. In seasons 2 and 3, there were 10 total winners out of 40 episodes. This is 10 winners for both seasons out of 40 episodes in both seasons. So, 20 out of 80 episodes. So it's not like a significant difference where they place the artifact. It was marginal at best. So, I guess it doesn't really matter where they place it. You still had the same odds of getting the artifact. Though, 40 isn't really a robust, number to pull your statistics from. I'm pretty sure in like baseball, you need like 80 at-bats until everything starts to even out and you kind of know what a player is going to be doing for that season. The team had 3 minutes to navigate the temple, grab the artifact, and then leave the temple. Though once the artifact was retrieved, all the doors would open and the temple guards would disappear. Right. The show had temple guards. They were these dudes that would hide in random rooms in the temple and scare the shit out of everyone watching when they went to grab the kids. There was also a noise cue for it, and the noise cue was also incredibly scary. You had been taken by a temple guard. Your teammate would then make their attempt at the temple, and if they were grabbed, that means game over and, you lose. Though, if you had a full pendant of life, you could give that up to the temple guard, and I say give it up as if you wouldn't do it anyways, to the temple guard, and you could continue on. If you had a half pendant of life, that'd be no good, and you would be taken away as if you had no pendant of life. Though, they would hide another half pendant of life to create a full pendant of life. This would effectively give you 3 lives to, run the temple. And technically speaking, if you had the 2 full pendants of lives, you could feasibly do the temple. It would give you the best shot, mainly because there were 3 temple guards. Take away 2 of those temple guards because of the 2 full pendants of lives. You take away 1 kid's life. You have 1 kid left to do the whole temple. One of my favorite parts of like season 1 was that there was like an 85% chance that the temple guard would be in the first room of the temple when you enter. Like not even like you fully entered. He'd be right at the entrance, and it was the funniest thing to watch. And for some little fun, let's create I'm a man of baseball. I like advanced stats. So let's create an advanced statistic for Legends of the Hidden Temple, a stat that's going to be ultimately meaningless because the show doesn't run anymore. And I've chosen this point to do it because I thought it'd be fun to figure out what is the best time, how long do you not want to get grabbed by a temple guard? You have 3 minutes, so obviously the number is going to be under 3 minutes, but how do we find this number? Well, let me tell you. What I did was I took times from temple runs, and, whenever the temple guard showed up, I would mark that down, and then restart the timer from there, and when the next one showed up, I would get that time. The numbers ranged wildly from like 6 seconds, which is, when they would first enter the temple, to like a minute and a half. This was either because they just didn't happen to run into a temple guard, or they got stuck in some rooms for a while and they were just kind of wandering around a bit with no sense of urgency because they're kids. They don't really know any better. Once I have gotten this number, I had averaged it out and rounded up just a bit to, the next half decimal to come up with a time of 39.5 seconds. So if you are above 39.5 seconds, it stands to reason you are doing a very good job of avoiding the temple guards, or it means you're doing a terrible job because you're stuck in one room for an extended period of time and you're not advancing. I would imagine that having a lower time actually would be more beneficial because that means you're moving about the rooms in a more efficient manner, which means you are having an increased chance of running into a temple guard. And if you want to use a little bit of logic, it stands to reason that if you run into a temple guard, it must mean you are going the right way. I guess we come into the situation of what do we call this statistic of getting grabbed by a temple guard? It's got to be an acronym, obviously, and you got to be able to say it like a word. So obviously it's time based. So let's do T for time. Time until guard grab. Plus, because a lot of advanced stance have plus on the end. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you this brand new stat specifically designed for Legends of the Hidden Temple, Tug Plus. time until guard grab. I'm pretty sure being under is better than being over, but I don't really know. I haven't figured that far out yet. We'll figure it out later. At the temple, there were 3 levels of prizes. The first prize was just for making it to the temple to begin with, and it'd be like skateboard or something. The second would be grabbing the artifact. It would usually be an electronic prize of some sorts, like a VCR. And the third would be for getting to the temple, grabbing the artifact, and leaving the temple with the artifact. This would be a vacation of some sorts. It ranged from, pretty good, to, Of course, one of them would be like space camp, something every kid in America in the 90s wanted to do because it was a prize for almost all game shows that involved kids. Though you could also have a real vacation trip to like the Bahamas. Or, you could take a vacation down to St. James River in Virginia, a houseboat deal. That's not really that much better. That's actually kind of a bummer. That's not a great vacation spot. Like Bahamas is beaches. A houseboat? You'll get sick because of the boat. I feel the need to mention that Olmec moans twice in the show. In season 1, he didn't, but I remembered him clearly doing it, in the other shows, and I was worried watching season 1 that my memory had failed me. Though once season 2 rolled around, every time he lowered the gate to the temple, he would make a moaning sound. It was super bizarre. And he would do it at the end of the credits too. Why is he moaning in a kid's show? Now that we understand how the show works, let's get into the fun statistics I had to come up with. In order to figure out which team was the best, I created a spreadsheet that had every single outcome for each team in every single episode. That's why it took so long, guy. And then I created a point system for how far they got. You would get 1 point for getting to the Steps of Knowledge. You would get 2 points for being in 3rd place on the Steps of Knowledge. Though if you were tied with the other eliminated team, they would both get 2 points. You would get 3 points for making it to the temple games, 4 points for making it to the temple, and 5 points for completing the temple. Obviously, if you got knocked out in the first round, you lose. You get nothing. Willy Wonka. As you can probably tell, I sort of had a horse in this race. For some reason, I had some fleeting memories that I watched the Silver Snakes make it to the finals a disproportionate amount of time compared to the other teams. You're rightfully thinking to yourself, well, Ted, aren't you just doing this whole video as a form of confirmation bias that your team was in fact the best team? Well, Joe Brown, I'm happy to say that this whole experience had been a big old slice of humble pie for me because, as it turns out, Silver Snakes aren't the best team, and I'll explain how. So once I have tallied all of these points, the results came out like this. The Green Monkeys were the best team, followed by the Red Jaguars, the Silver Snakes, the Blue Barracudas, the Orange Iguanas, and the Purple Parrots bringing up the rear. Let's get a little bit deeper though. Which team was the best team in completion rate once reaching the temple? And once again, the Green Monkeys were the best team, completing the temple over 50% of the time, and they had the second most attempts at the temple. The Silver Snakes also had an above 50%, but they only had like the 3rd or 4th amount of temple runs. I mean, the Orange Iguanas had more. They had the most temple runs out of every team, and they also failed the most, which is kind of a bummerooski. Here are some fun facts from what I observed while watching Legends of the Temple. The Silver Snakes were the first team to complete a temple run in the 3rd episode of the first season. They were also the only team to ever go back-to-back full champions in Season 1, Episode 38 and 39. It is fun to note that in the last episode of Legends of the Temple, there was a complete winner as well, which is a little neat. You also had a couple teams make it to the final round 3 times in a row, though neither of them could ever really push it through to complete the back-to-back-to-back champions. The Orange Iguanas didn't make it past the first round, the most out of any team, actually not advancing 43% of the time, which would account for them not, getting a lot of points despite having the most trips to the temple. The Red Jaguars spent the most of their time in third place at about 33% of the time. Overall, the success rate of completing the temple across all teams was about 26%, with the Green Monkeys and Silver Snakes doing the bulk of the work thanks to their 50% completion rate. I remember watching a lot of Nick Gas as a kid. It was probably my go-to channel as a kid due to its almost round-the-clock programming it had. I had a lot of friends over and sleepovers on the weekends, and Nick Gas was almost always running shows and not doing infomercials at the end of the night or early in the day. And turns out that's when Legends of the Hidden Temple would usually be running. And I guess for some reason, I had it in my brain that the Silver Snakes consistently made it to the finals the most. Turns out I'm wrong, but it's a statistical anomaly that I remember all these episodes in which the Silver Snakes had made it to the finals. I had a better chance at watching a lesser team like the Orange Iguanas make it to the finals than the Silver Snakes. I don't know how I remember this. Maybe it was just me projecting, me wanting the Silver Snakes to be doing well because as a kid, you want your favorite team to be the best. So, you remember your team doing well more often than your team doing bad. Unless you're a Mets fan and you remember Luis Castillo dropping that fly ball, then, you don't remember a team doing well. You remember a team doing a Lamau. Really, those are marginal numbers between teams making it to the finals in the grand scheme of things. So really, it's just a marginal difference at best. And it's probably pure happenstance that I had watched episodes in which the Silver Snakes had made it to the finals on reruns. At the end of this, if you find yourself watching Legends of the Hidden Temple and you don't know who to root for, I'll suggest the underdog, the Purple Parrots. They could use any support that they can get, really. If you find yourself, making it onto the reboot of Legends of the Hidden Temple on the CW, because they're looking for adults and not kids, and you don't know what team you want to be on, hey, take the Green Monkeys. It's a solid bet that you'll make it to the finals. Though, realistically, who's to say that they're the best team overall? It was all randomly sorted for who was on what team. There was no real way to say that my numbers are in any way meaningful at all at the end of the day for Legends of the Temple about who's a more successful team. If anything, this whole experience just kind of proves how much chaos just rules our life.